Well, let me start with a little bit of history. Etermax started as a mobile company because I created the first iPhone trading application in 2008, and I created the company because I saw that mobile were starting to be important in the world, and we wanted to give the enterprise sector some solutions, especially in the financial sector. We didn't want to do games. We realized we wanted to do more important things. But at some point, we wanted to change into having our own products, because when you work for other companies, there are a lot of problems. So we wanted to have something of our own. So in 2011, we created our first game, which was Apalabrados. And Apalabrados was very successful, especially in Spain. It was the #1 downloaded application in Spain during 2012, more than WhatsApp, more than Twitter, and everyone was very excited about it in Spain, but it was pretty much just a Spanish success. So we decided to stop doing everything else and start doing games. We continue developing other games, Word Crack, Bingo Crack. They were successful, but not as successful as the first one. And at the end of 2013, we realized we had a great platform. We were very good at social games, and we wanted to turn that into another success. And I realized that trivia games were very popular. They're always popular. They are in TV shows, board games, and other stuff. And some of the games some of these trivia games had the problem of content. So the problem was that either the questions started to be repeated, or they were not localized for each of the territories. So if I'm Spanish and I see Argentinian questions, I don't like them, and the other way around. So the problem to solve here was generating an infinite amount of questions for each of the territories in the world, in each of the languages of the world. And as you realize, that's something that you cannot do by hand. It's not economically viable. So we had another approach, which was doing crowdfunding questions. And I will explain that afterwards, but it was a huge success. And it was the first time a Latin American game took the world by storm. In the first quarter of 2014, we became #1 in all Latin America, including Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. We reached 10 million daily active users there. And we started to see how to do a successful game in each of those territories, and how to capture all those territories. And the second quarter of 2014, we started being very popular in the States. This is the game. So you have a wheel and you have to play. Maybe some of you have already played. I just put that so that if you didn't know the game, you could see it. So right now we have 20 million daily active users and about 500,000 downloads per day, which is makes it one of the most successful games in the world. I don't put it here, but we are making about $500,000 per day in revenue. So again, and all this without user acquisition. So all of our growth was organic, and that's something very difficult to do because you need to have the viral channels very studied so that they can work. Well, one of the things that happened was in 2012 there was an application called Draw Something, and that application was 36 days straight in the #1 spot in the USA in the App Store. And during the December of 2014 and January 2015, we have been more than 60 days #1 in that store. We are still #1 game, or we are in that place, but as the record was cracked by some days, so the record stayed at 66 days, but that's twice the time, that's twice the days that what Draw Something had, and it was during the Christmas season, which is much more difficult, and also it was 3 years after, which is much more difficult than before because you have much more competition. So we are very happy with that. If you see here, these are App Annie's charts. You can see that the spot in the overall didn't go straight up like what you see when you have user acquisition. It was something organic. And if you see those peaks, they're because we went up during the weekdays and we went down during the weekends. And that's because most of the companies spend much of their money in user acquisition during the weekends. So as we didn't spend any, we were better at the weekdays. So let's talk about one of the key features of the game, which is the question factory. The whole concept of the question factory is you cannot do all the content, so you need the users to do it. Right? So it's an easy concept, but it's something very difficult to achieve, because we receive right now more than 1 million questions per day, and that's a real number, 1 million questions per day. So users take the time to write those questions and send it to us. Of course, there are much more than what we need, and many of them are repeated or are garbage or whatever. So you need not only a way for the users to send those questions, but also for the system to understand which of those questions are important, which are offensive, which have bad answers. So our approach was not only use the power of the people to send the questions, but also to evaluate and either reject them or pass them. But again, as not all the users are experts, you would need 100 or 200 people to evaluate a certain question in order to go to production. So the concept is like that. You send a question, and then hundreds of people see that question and say if it's offensive, if it has errors, if it's not in the correct category or whatever. And about 1,000 to 2,000 of those million questions we get per day go to production, right? So what we get is a great amount of good content, and all the content is localized in language, but also in territory. So Argentinians make their own questions, and Spanish make their own questions, even if both can play together and share the same language, they have different cultures. So that's the reason why in Latin America it became a great success, because most of the companies just think of Latin America as a big country, but we know that that's not true, and we have nothing to do with Mexican people in terms of culture, or in terms of pop stars, in terms of what we like to see in the television or whatever. And so people started to feel that the game was of their own. Also, they started to see questions of important things that happened yesterday, or things that were relevant at that time. And that's something you don't regularly see in trivia games, because once they have a set of questions, they just go. The other problem we found when we started the game, and one of the funny things is that we launched the game in October 2013, and it wasn't very popular during those first months. We didn't have the question factory, but you know, the worst part was that questions were too difficult. So we realized people like to answer about between 4 of 5 questions. So if you have 5 questions, they want to answer correctly 4 of those 5 questions. If not, they get tired of the game. And so we continued doing this question factory better. And we put 3 engineers for a year, and they're still working on it. And at the very beginning of the system, you needed some humans in the process. Now it's the whole process is humanless. One of the most difficult parts was to detect repeated questions. So for example, we get how old is Justin Bieber? We get it like 1,000 times per day, each day, the same question. And you can write that question in many ways, but still the same question. And it's not easy for a machine to understand that a question is repeated. So doing all that technology was quite complicated. It's not that we were the first that understood all these technologies but separated, but put them together and make them work was the real achievement, engineering achievement of the game, and made it very easy for us to capture more territories. So right now we're focused on Europe. We started with Spain, and right now we are #1 in Spain. We're growing very quickly, and the experience of doing that in many places in the world allowed us to do that in the unknown territories, right? So Europe is another example of multicultural markets that need to be approached in a different way. The second thing I want to tell you about was this is a television show. This is a primetime television show with Susana Jimenez, which is the biggest star in Argentina. Together with Tinelli, which is the other big star, they wanted to have the format in their own programs because they saw the popularity of the game in the youth. So they wanted that in the show. And it was very popular. It was like the most popular TV show at that time. And even inside the Susana Jimenez show, it was the moment where the rating was higher. It wasn't easy because we wanted to do something else, not just, I mean, when you see a trivia game in television, what is that you do? What's attractive about that? You want to play, right? So you see that television show, and even if some of the people there are playing, you want to play yourself or you want to play with the person next to you. So we decided we wanted to take that experience back to the game and with a second screen concept. And we did. So when the television show started, you could open the Trivia Crack application, and you would see that banner that you see over there, here. And so you could play with the people that was playing the show at the same time. So when you saw a question in the television show, you saw it in your own cell phone, and you could play with them. And the people that answered more questions during the television show, which were about 30, would get a prize. No one did all the questions in any of the shows, even if hundreds of thousands of people were playing at the same time. And that is the second thing that was difficult to do. We are used to many users, of course. 20 million daily active users is a lot, and we have distributed non-relational databases, hundreds of servers in Amazon and all that. But having a push notification sent to 100,000 people at the same time require more servers than what we were used to. So using Amazon, what we did was prepare for that an hour before. We grew the servers to the double, and so we could serve all the users at the same time, and the experience was really good. So doing second screen is not something difficult, or it's not something that's a new idea, but what's really difficult is to give a good experience to the user, right? What we usually see in these kinds of shows that try to implement new technologies is that they do it, but they suck, right? So users don't care if it's the first time, if it's difficult to do. They just see that the game sucks and then it fails. But it didn't in this case. The other thing we wanted was the real Trivia Crack experience in the show. We didn't want those television producers to do all the software because we knew that we won't be getting the quality we needed, especially the visual quality. If you see, our games are very visual, and they require a lot of design and a lot of thinking with that. So we decided to do all the software ourselves. And so if you see, you have a big screen in the back, and then each of the contestants have a screen, and Susana has one too. Some of them are touchscreen, and other are not. So what we decided to do is just put a server. Well, other thing we didn't want to do is, first we wanted to control the questions. So we couldn't play the regular game because they wanted actually to check the questions, and also they wanted to know which questions were going to be, and maybe do some tweaking during the show so that it would be faster or slower. And also they didn't want to rely on internet connection, because if you're in the middle of a live show, as this was, it was not good to rely on internet connection. So we did everything offline, and we had a person back there managing all the parts, and everything you see there is just a server and many screens in a Chrome, and a regular Chrome browser that you just program in HTML5, and that allows us to use much of the technology in our HTML5 game. So it went very good, and people liked it very much, and it was a great experience. So let me tell you about the future. What we see right now with the game, with all of our games, is that they're very social, and that's a very important part in the growth. As I said before, we don't do any user acquisition, so users need to be convincing other users to be in the game. Our chat that's inside all of our games, it's the best in the gaming world. I mean, it works like a charm. It's much better than what you see, for example, in Tinder or any other of those applications that are not chat-specific, right? But it has some limitations. Some of them are you cannot send files, you cannot create groups, you cannot send locations, and you don't have the typing thing and all that, and you don't have the response of the user. Well, some small things that, of course, when I speak about all the things, some comes to your mind, like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or the messaging app that you are imagining. So we said, hey, we need the best chat in the world. At least it needs to be the same as WhatsApp. Because it's not that we are entering the chatting world. Hundreds of millions of chats are sent each day with the application, and people use it to meet other people. But the problem is that if you're used to WhatsApp or any other messaging application, and you're talking to a girl you just know, you just say, hey, what's your WhatsApp? And you want to take her or him to the other messenger application. So what happens is that we lose users in that way. So what we need is to mimic all that same features. And once we said that, we said, well, now that we are doing all that technology, we can just take it to another application. So what we are doing right now is we're going to create our own messenger that will be inside and outside of our games, and that will make our retention much higher and make the experience of the users much better, and it will increase virality too. So that's one of the focus things for 2015. And the other one is the second version of Trivia Crack, which is going to be called Trivia Crack Channels. So it's not that we are going to do just another version of the same game, but what happened was that many of the companies or non-profits in the world, some of them were the Red Cross, Greenpeace, the Time Magazine, asked us to make their own Trivia Crack. So we did that with a couple of entities. One was the Football Club Barcelona, and the other one was the Real Madrid. It was a success, but we cannot do that for everyone in the world. It's not possible. So what we thought about was, let's make a game that's similar to Trivia Crack, using all that technology, but you can play in channels. So channels are like Twitter accounts or YouTube accounts. And we will allow entities and even individuals to create their own channels. And those channels will be available to everyone. If you follow them, you will be able to discover them. And it could be a channel from a fourth-grade teacher that wants to do something for the students, a channel for Greenpeace that wants to teach about ecology to the people using questions. So the whole concept here is to send content in the form of a game, right? That's not something you see right now, but all these social networks that you see, Twitter, Facebook, they just send content, but they're not in the form of a game. So we are thinking about a new mechanics, of course, because you won't have any categories to have a spin wheel, and everyone will be able to create their own channel, and we have arranged special channels. There will be also a general channel that you can play just like Trivia Crack, but also you will be able to have to go to the Time Magazine channel. We have already arranged the Red Cross, the Greenpeace one, and every soccer team in the world, and every soccer fan team, every soccer fan will be able to do their own channel too, and some of them will go up and some of them not, and we will plan to do some revenue sharing on the profits too, similar to what you see in the YouTube right now. So we're very excited about that, and we hope I will be here next year telling that it was a success.